Well, thank you for joining us today. I hope that you will get a little bit out of today, a lot out of today. Um, and I'm super excited to share what I'm about to share with you because this really is the, I would say it's quite novel and new and could even be revolutionary for our understanding of women inheriting. And if you wait around until the end, I'll be sharing more about how you can go deeper, but also what's possible for your clients as well, if you have them. I'm also going to make this a little bit interactive and I'll be asking questions, but also get you to reflect and putting things in the chat box. And I hope that's fine. A little bit of housekeeping, if it's possible, to turn off your phones, to just be here today. And I know, I know that we live in a really dispersed world with lots of distraction. But if you can bring all of yourself here today, that's how you'll get the most out of it. So, welcome to Supporting Women Through Inheritance Masterclass. The reason why I reached out to Rohan to set this up was because of my own personal journey, and also because the last 9 months has been a real exploration for to understand, what is going on in the finance world, because it's not my world per se. I've always imbibed, I've always been in the transformation world. So when I started to do a lot more research into this, I realized that actually that it's a hot topic in terms of how do we work with women. But more about that in a moment. So, next slide. I have a question for you, actually. And I'm curious, when working with female inheritors, what do you find the most challenging? And if you can put that into the chat box, that would be amazing. Because I'd love to know. Now, it's obviously not mandatory. Maybe you just want to reflect on it, but I would love to know what are some of the things that you've seen that actually you're like, it doesn't allow us to make more progress. Um, Great. Let's see. Wonderful. Helping them to free themselves from shame. Absolutely. Thank you, Naomi. Anybody else? Balancing their want and guilt around wanting to do something just for them with using the money to take care of their family. Wonderful. Yep. Anything else? Great. Wanting to retain assets that aren't suitable for them. Yes, absolutely. And this is wonderful because actually what I'm already seeing is that you already have a really, well, I would say an insightful grasp into what's going on for them. So next slide. So, as you already know, probably already know, the wealth transfer challenge, I call it, that female inheritors don't just inherit estates, portfolios, or assets. We also inherit grief, unprepared responsibility. I mean, the stats show something really quite extraordinary, which is 43% of women expecting an inheritance have not seen their parents' will. So this is incredible. And I was one of them. 40% of women inherited assets without a wealth transfer plan. So they have loyalty bias, which is what some of you have spoken to already. They have their family dynamics and expectations and emotional roller coasters. So there's a lot going on for her. Um, and ultimately, when she doesn't actually, she's not connected to the wealth that she's about to inherit or already has, she doesn't have a connection to it. So therefore, in her head, it's still very much the other person's wealth. Because that person has actually spent so much time in creating it, planning for it, etc., that once it lands in her world, it's a bit like, oh my God, what do I do with this? I'd love to know if that's actually been your experience. Um, yeah. So, yes, wonderful. Thank you, Jill. Anybody else? Anybody else has had that experience? Well, it certainly was mine. So yeah, next slide. So there's an incredible opportunity. As much as there is a challenge for her, there's an incredible opportunity in this moment in time. As 84% of female inheritors doubt their ability to manage their inheritance confidently. So this is an incredible opportunity for you. And I think it's never been such an incredible opportunity to be part of this and to support her in the way that you can. And then obviously 74% of those who hadn't yet inherited feel unprepared. So, as I've already said, there's a challenge because obviously she's going through something. Um, and then there is this beautiful opportunity to support her because obviously there is this $1 trillion wealth transfer happening. Next slide, please. So, however, 70% of female inheritors change their financial advisor within the first year. I know that there's probably quite a few planners here as well. Um, but in generally speaking, we tend to want to change because we didn't necessarily inherit, we weren't the ones to choose the team. So ultimately, here are some of the reasons why we decide to change. Gender bias in communication, talked down to or ignored. 60% talking to men versus 40% talking to women in meetings. Lack of personalization. As most of you probably know already, women want goal-based planning, financial security, and addressing complexities like caregiving or longer lifespans, not just performance. There's definitely been a lack of empathy during life transitions. And obviously, you guys already know that we need support, not just investment management, correct? If this is resonating, I'd love to know just by putting a yes in the chat box. Um, and we generally want to be heard. We want to be heard. Um, and we're looking for better listeners and less likely to be people that aren't going to be condescending to us, basically. Um, we want to feel included and we want to feel seen, we want to feel heard. So, those in the industry that are able to read the psychology, the timing, and give her space to see that when she's emotionally ready, um, are the ones that are going to retain the relationship. And this is amazing news for you, obviously. Next slide, please. So, I thought this was really cool, and I decided to introduce it because when I saw it, it really did something for me. We, as women, we are wired completely differently to men. As you will see on the left-hand side, this is the female brain before menopause. And I'm sharing this with you because some of you may have clients that are before menopause, and there'll be some clients of yours that are going to be post menopause. However, as you can see, the female brain is completely and utterly connected from one side of the other. We are all about connecting one thing with the other, the logic with the emotional. Whereas the male brain, as you can see in the middle, is completely separate. So, when it comes to talking about finance, of course, we cannot separate the two. It's really difficult for us to compartmentalize finance, cold, performance, logic with everything else that we've got going on. But over time, as you can see, it starts to become a lot more left brain to one side, right brain to the other, but it's still converging. So, what I've seen, especially in times of emotional upheaval, which ultimately inheritance is because they're dealing with loss, um, they may well be dealing with a lot of difficult family dynamics. They may well be dealing with, yes, their own personal grief. Um, and also what you've shared here today, the guilt, the shame, the anger, whole bunch of emotional side, it's really difficult for us to compartmentalize that. So when a woman who's inherited shows up in your practice, your office. She's not just dealing with money and wealth, she's also dealing with everything else that she's been going big that's going on. And this was certainly my own experience. Next slide. So I wanted to share a little bit about my story before we go on to the next part, which is really about reflecting more about how you can support her more deeply, etc. Um, and why I'm even here. Because ultimately you might be thinking, well, I don't know Marina, I don't know what she's about, I don't know why she's even talking about this. So let me share. I at this point in time, I've had 16 years in the transformation industry. I've authored 3 books and I have been in the media quite a bit with different points of view around the books that I wrote back then. Always, always, always focused on women. Um, and the emotional side that we journey with. One was around divorce, and the other one was around mums in business and how they can create a um, live more and stress less. And I have just put the final pointers on my next book, which is She Who Inherits, which will be coming out next year. And it's a really deep, big, deep dive into helping her navigate this journey. And it is a journey. How many of you would agree that she goes on a journey when she inherits? I'd love to hear, yeah, if that resonates for you. I so let me take you back 15 years ago. I was 35 years old. My father had left me a pretty significant sum of money in his will. And I thought I'd arrived to the Holy Grail as a young 35-year-old. However, I didn't realize that actually that couldn't have been further from the truth. What I hadn't seen at the time was that I would have to grapple with the sense, the terrifying feeling that I was going to do it wrong, the understanding that it was now my responsibility and that was a massive burden on my shoulders. And ultimately, I for many years, I'm not understanding this dynamic at all. I lived like my father had, which was very much in a poverty mindset, not wanting to spend it, actually getting sweaty palms every time I did. Um, and just generally speaking, like just not enjoying the journey whatsoever in the least. And this was so confusing for me because I'm like, on the one hand, I've been given this incredible gift. And on the other hand, I am not experiencing what I thought I would. And what you've already spoken to about the shame, about the guilt, about not understanding how to direct their money, lead the assets, understanding. I mean, it's like being thrown into a whole different new country with different jargon and having to place it all together. It was really confusing. And my father did not prepare me one iota for this. Now, I've got 2 sisters that had already been through an inheritance with their father, but one of my sisters was always working, so she didn't really have to look at it. My other sister has pretty always been pretty savvy around money, but we have very different values on it. So there was really nobody I could speak to. I didn't know who to speak to. And I inherited my father's financial advisor. And my experience of that was very much like why 75% of women decide that they are going to fire their advisor, because I felt the same way. And then went to another advisor. He also was very, very condescending to me. And in the end, I was like, this just doesn't work for me. I don't feel seen, I don't feel heard, and I certainly do not feel like I'm being guided in the way that I would like. So I decided to take my money out of the market and do something with it. Well, I pretty much, probably not the best idea. I didn't even know that I could go and see a financial planner. I didn't even know what that was at the time. I had no understanding of how the financial industry worked. So one of the first things that for me was very much like I wish I'd had somebody go, okay, when you inherit, go do this. When you inherit, go do this. And actually, ultimately, the difference between a financial planner, a financial advisor, how each of them can help me. So in the end, because I had was so unaware of what was going on for me, um, I abdicated, I avoided, and basically, um, I thought that everybody else knew better than I did. So I invested in things that I didn't understand. I sought assurance versus clarity. And I'll talk more about um, what I did with it later. But for now, my what I discovered, and maybe you resonate with this too, is that my decisions were driven by guilt, overwhelm, fear, pressure, the fear of financial loss. I bought myself into financial losses, scams, sold a home I loved, because I was making most of my decisions on drama, certainly not on data. Nevertheless, in 2017, there was a massive turning point for me because I knew that I didn't know, but I didn't know who to go to. So part of this was suddenly life going, hey, here, take a look at this. And it was a financial coach who basically taught me ABC because I'd never been taught any of this, how to manage my personal finances, how to understand where my money was going every month. I'd never tracked anything. Well, I didn't need to because there was always money coming in. And if there wasn't, I could always ask my father for it, right? So now that is definitely something that I no longer would, that's just certainly something that I don't do with my son. But that was the dynamic we had at the time, and I thought that was fine because I didn't know any better. And then suddenly this lady appeared and we started working together. We worked together for about 3 years. She taught me about investing, she taught me about planning, she taught me about how to manage my investments. It was an absolute game changer. So I just want to say how important your work really is. And what was so fascinating about this was that at the time I chose to work with her, I knew that I needed somebody because I was selling a property in London at the time, and it had been, I was waiting for the buyers to buy it, and it had taken 6 months because there was a chain. And instead of going, no, I don't want to wait this long, I'm going to find another buyer, I waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. And because I didn't have anybody living in the property at the time, because there was some damp issues. So it was vacant. I had to pay a mortgage and I was waiting for 6 months to sell. That was the woman I was back then. But at that moment, I didn't actually have any cash. So I wasn't able to pay my bills. Even though I was asset rich, I was really cash poor. Anyway, Anne came along at the right time. And 3 years later, I had a really good grasp on my financial situation. I understood that I was financially free and that um, I could live that way. Nevertheless, what I discovered was that while I was told this, I didn't live like it. So, how many of you have got clients that you tell time and time again that they are fine, but somehow they still feel like they're not? I'd love to know whether that's been your experience of your clients. What have you seen from this? Because when I've spoken to financial planners or when I've spoken to some IFAs, a lot of them have said to me, there's no reason for her to worry. She's got money, that's not a problem. Um, but yet she still doesn't feel safe, right? So I couldn't comprehend what the hell was going on because from the outside in, financially, I was fine. And it was it was such a revelation to me that I didn't have a I didn't have a understanding issue. I had a capacity issue because I felt that unsafe in my own body. So let me just read these out. I'm still new to coaching, but I can say that from the clients I have, I do see this on many levels. Yes, certainly see a reluctance to invest and hold large amounts of cash when they don't need to. Yes, I'll speak to that in a moment. Agree with Jill. This is something I notice in many areas of their lives, not just the financial one. Safety and capacity issues. Yes, absolutely. And so what's interesting to me is if somebody had told me that I was in transition. So somebody had said to me, look, Marina, you are, you're, it's not that you don't have a handle on this. It's not that you're never going to trust yourself. It's not that you're never going to make clear decisions. It's not that you're never going to hold your wealth consciously and act with intention. It's not that you're never going to actually be able to lead it. It's the fact that you're in transition. What does that mean? She's not struggling with the plan. She's navigating an identity shift. I didn't need more information. I needed the capacity to hold it. This is massive because when you realize that your client is actually going through a huge identity shift from possibly a passive voyeur of what was going on in her life with her finances, where she was completely disconnected from it, to now being invited into a conversation that, first of all, she has never probably even had. Secondly, that she doesn't even know that she can't even name it. Like when I have been reading, when I've been writing my book, I have a group of women who have been there to, give me feedback. And the time and time again, the amount of times I've heard is, wow, thank you for naming something I couldn't have put into words myself. And it is so true because when you're in it, when you've got all this emotion, when you're in the spiral, when you are, um, you know, blaming yourself, judging yourself, wishing that it was different, because ultimately there's this big shift from I should be grateful, but I don't feel that way. And so then we judge ourselves. So for her to know that she is going through an identity shift, it's massive. I would say it is the one big thing that if you can name, it will change the way that she experiences this entire experience. So, I want to sort of go on to the next slide. Jill, I think there is a transition necessary for women to understand their wants and needs with their finances. Absolutely. Whether it be what prosperity they purchase or what they've invested. They often need to figure out what they want before they can make any decisions. Absolutely. And we'll go into the different stages of where they might find where you might find them when they come to you. So before we get into that, I want to share a little bit about my own personal, well, my own the way I see things in this space. And my point of view. Um, I believe and see that inheritance is a rite of passage. So, like with any rite of passage, you're going to discover that she goes through her own stages. She's navigating some stage at some point in this journey. And it really is an invitation and a journey into a new identity. Just like with the rite of passage, there are three stages to it, and I'll go into that in a moment. Wealth amplifies emotions and relationship dynamics. It's a massive amplifier for anything that was going on for her. It's like a hand grenade that goes off in her bedroom and just like, whoa, what the hell just happened there, right? The biggest risk to her wealth is this identity lag. So trying to navigate something that she wasn't prepared for with an old identity, with the old uh, patterns and beliefs and behaviors that stop her from being able to actually navigate this in a way that she can lead it. Freedom and safety are not created by wealth, it's internal. So, what I've discovered is that often we think that once I land holy grail, the jackpot, I'll be, I'll be safe and free. Actually, that is not the case at all. As I've already said, it's an amplifier. So if you don't feel free and safe internally, it's going to be very difficult. The wealth will show you where that's still actually the case for you. In other words, where you don't feel safe, where you don't feel free. It's not a capability issue, it's a capacity issue. So I want you to imagine, and I'm possibly speaking to the converted here, and don't want to teach you to suck eggs at all. But the I do want to keep expressing this because when she is full, it's really difficult for her for the information to land. So I don't know about you, but uh, I certainly experience this when I'm in my own space and I'm going through something. If somebody's throwing information at me, it's really difficult for me to integrate it. It's a bit like putting whole bunch of water on parched earth. It just doesn't go in. The soil needs to be fertile. It needs to be ready. It needs to be in its season so it can actually absorb the water. And obviously, she needs to trust you. And I get that most of you here will already know that. But as I said, it was interesting because I saw a few people go to this event, and there was a lady that was talking about trust. And I thought that was so interesting that trust should be one of the main speaking moments in that event. And but then it made sense. It was like, well, if the work that most people do in the financial industry is to manage wealth, then we've got to shift we've got to, I guess, shift the way that we're seeing it and really focus on the person that we've got right at hand because we just don't do it the same as men. And then finally, as I said, women are just wired differently to men and we need to talk it out. Um, when I was deep diving into feminine and masculine dynamics, what I discovered was that we reduce our stress by talking things through. Men don't. Um, And for those men in the room, I'm sure that you understand this. You have wives, maybe you have daughters. You'll know that we probably do things very differently and we want to chat and we want to talk and we want to explore and we want to. So yeah, it's really, really important for us to talk. So we have to allow her to talk even if it has nothing to do with what you are trying to achieve in that moment, because it will actually allow her brain to calm down. When it is calm, then the information can go in. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to take a minute, and see with everything that I've been sharing so far, what's the one thing that stood out for you? If anything. You can put nothing. You can put actually this was really helpful, or yeah, just I would love to know. So put that in the chat box. Um And as I said at the beginning, the more you put in, safety and shift on identity. Wonderful. Thank you. It's mainly an emotional journey, not an understanding issue. Yes, absolutely, Freddie. Um, it is. I mean, basically, we are emotional beings, and we are, as you know, the brain is very different. So to men. So ultimately, yeah, it is an emotional journey. So, um, as such, we need, when we understand that, we can approach this really differently. And this is my hope for you today, for me to kind of give you some insight into how that could be for you. Next slide, please. So, as I was writing my book, I realized that actually, as I said, already said, that she goes on a journey. And it really is a rite of passage. And so because I didn't really understand what a rite of passage is, you know, I know that in tribal cultures, they still use these, especially for um, taking boys into manhood, for example, or um, girls into becoming a woman. But our modern day society really does not talk about this, right? I mean, as women, for example, our body tells us that. Um, and because we're now educated to know that, our bleed happens every month, we don't think we're dying. For a lot of women, when didn't know what was going on, they thought they were dying back then. So understanding that she is in a rite of passage can be very helpful for her. It's a bit like if you don't know that you are, leaving from Birmingham going and you don't know where you are and you don't know where you want to go, how can you get from A to B? So if I don't know I'm in Birmingham, for example, and I don't know how to get to London because I don't know where I'm starting from, right? So actually being able to say, for her to understand that she's in a rite of passage, that this is an invitation, and then she'll go into an initiation, and then she can go back into a reclamation, but it's not linear. Um, there will be moments where she'll be back into the invitation of, oh God, now I've got to go. Now this is something else I'm being invited into. And then it will start to initiate um, a different part of her. It will be asking her to embody a different part of herself. So let me just read out to you what I've written in the book so far. So the invitation. In this stage, inheritance arrives not as clarity, but as a threshold moment. Something in her knows life has changed, even if she cannot articulate how. There is curiosity, sensitivity, and even a quiet sense of being unprepared. This is not naivety, it's receptivity. So, when my own version of this was when my father died, I knew that life was different. I knew that that I now had some sort of a responsibility, and so much so, I decided to travel to Bali, and I spent 6 weeks there. And now looking back, I realized that actually it was almost like that first step to commemorate this new life I was stepping into. Now, of course, my father was 92 when he died, so he'd lived an incredible life. And of course, there was some grief. But at the same time, I knew that I didn't have the words for it, but I knew that it was my first step into commemorating my new life. But not many women will do that, right? So just to know that that exists. Then the initiation. This is a stage where things often begin to feel more intense, where she's being asked to move out of that shame, possibly. She's being asked to move out of that guilt because the shame and the guilt is known. While it feels deeply uncomfortable, it'll probably be her safe spot. It's what she's known, it's what she's going through, and moving out of there can also bring on loads more guilt because it's like, oh no, but I need to stay here because I need to I've lost someone. And so in doing that, well, obviously, I need to stay here to commemorate them. So there's this piece around not because she's doing anything wrong, but because something within her is being asked to grow into a role that she's not fully embodied yet. And yet that expansion can feel unfamiliar, exposing, and at times deeply uncomfortable. So there may well be some resistance to that, which you've already pointed to, which is like how do I get her out of this shame? How to get her out of this guilt? And this is where the old identity will be tested and challenged over and over. Um, she'll be asked to alchemize her shadows into gold and her failures into fuel and her fears into power. This stage will keep inviting her into gauntlets and baptisms of fire over and over until she integrates the transformation. Call you, like having been in the transformation industry for as long as I have, this is what we go through with our clients, regardless of what they are going through. This is what I would see as the main framework. And then finally, there's a sort of a reclamation, um, which is she has gone through so many moments of invitation, initiation, and reclamation in small bites that suddenly it's like the reality that she's walking in starts to feel very different. And once integrated these parts, she's now ready to live her life in this very new way. She acts and moves and shows up differently. And as such, um, either the people that she had in her life either fall away or she responds very differently to things altogether. Um, this is about ownership. And this is about owning her new identity, embodying her way of being with intention and in clarity. So I can see myself in all of these stages. Um, the stage of initiation for me lasted for quite a long time, but I was going through these stages time and time again in the cycle. The final big one for me was I sold my beautiful villa. I bought a doer-upper to downsize, um, and it just turned into a nightmare. But what it did was have me move from this fear of getting it wrong, from this lack of trust in life to and into um more of my power and the woman I'm showing up as today. So less appeasing. Well, appeasing just went out of the window actually. I just don't do that anymore. Being able to voice my concerns or being able to voice my truth. Um, life just threw all of that me. Then so yeah, today, I don't ask whether I'm getting it right. What I love to ask instead is, what would I love? What would be the most joyous? What would be the most juicy? What would be the most fun? Um, and that is what I take into consideration over, am I getting it right or am I getting it wrong? So, I'd love to know what you've heard so far. And as always, put in the chat box, has this been useful to see this? And can you identify possibly that your clients go through this? Cool. Alrighty. Next slide. So let's take a moment and I want to bring this back to you um, and talk about these stages and what to look out for, what she needs. Um, Yeah. Okay, great. The fact that she might take some actions to downsize herself and kill her joy. Yep. It's like the Joseph Campbell hero cycle. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It was something that sort of came to me, and I guess Joseph Campbell is somebody who possibly took the rite of passage as a way to navigate the journey. So, but yes. Um I guess I've just adapted it to her. Um, so I thought this might be helpful and useful to look out for what stage she's in. So the invitation stage, as I've already shared, what to look out for: overwhelm, freezing, avoidance. What she needs is listening, space, and empathy. What she's what you can ask her is what feels unclear or overwhelming. And the tool is to really reflect on what she needs from you right now. This is the time when she needs space. Um, she may think she needs to get it all done now, but I think that here is the time to actually start to gently, quietly give her the space she needs and prod her a little bit here and there with gentle, loving questions. Um, because here, trying to point her in a direction with a plan, asking her for what she wants, asking her how she wants to lead her money, what she wants to do with it, what her desires are, what's her vision. It, this is the space that she probably is at a big I do not know. So here it's really just about listening, giving her the space and being empathetic. Next slide, please. So as you think about your clients, maybe there's somebody that comes to mind. Um, have you seen possibly what you thought was as disengaged, but actually she's very overwhelmed? So I'd just like you to take a minute to reflect on that. And whether you've had your own personal experience with this, I'd love to know. So next slide, please. Okay, the initiation. What to look for. And I'm sure that you can identify repeated conversations, emotional decisions, loyalty to past structures. There is definitely a loyalty bias on this one. I know this one well. In fact, I spent years um, seeing my estate as almost like a bank, actually, and kind of going, well, if I take from it, I'm going to have to put it back. And I felt always in debt to it. But for quite a long time after my father passed away and my mother passed away, it didn't feel like mine. So part of this is um, to understand and to normalize that this is so, so normal. It's totally normal. And it's not unusual because once again, it's like they made the money. So now what? They want to honor that person, right? Like I wanted to honor my father because he made it and he spent years um dedicating himself to making it. He spent years um dedicating his time to making it. And suddenly it's like, woohoo, I've landed the jackpot, but I also really want to make sure that I do a good job of it. And it's almost like I couldn't separate myself from him, what I'd been given. It was like almost like I was betraying him by not doing the thing. So, but of course, that person is no longer there. But honestly, if I'd had somebody that said, "Hey, I get what you're going through. I would love to, I think it's really important to honor the past, but also, you have permission to move forward." But I get it. It's like they are possibly stuck in this. If I move forward, I'm betraying them, which just isn't true. So one of the questions I think can be really helpful is what do you think your father, your spouse, your whoever it was, would have wanted you to do with this. They don't need to answer there and then, but you're including them in the conversation. You're not excluding them from that conversation, and you're saying, hey, um, what do you think they want for you? It's an opening because to ask her what she wants, I don't know about you, for most of us, we don't know what we want, especially in a time like this, right? And generally speaking, women aren't asked that. We've been conditioned to ask what everybody else wants. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Right? Especially the older generations, especially, I mean, I know my generation, it's like to be a good girl, to be a nice girl, you have to act a certain way and look after everybody else, especially if they're mothers, right? It's constantly output, constant output, constant output. And it's like, actually, what do I want? But that takes time. And it is a transition. So, once again, one of the things you can really do, and that's very helpful, is to honor where she's at, to reframe it in a way, to change the way that she's seeing it. So, offer up something different, and then tell her that she's in this transition. Tell her, nudge her, share, share what I'm seeing is, right? So that she understands. Um, So by the time she comes to see you, she may have already started the journey by trying to sort it out. She may have had some really shitty experiences. And just to be able to actually honor what she's gone through can make such a huge difference. Next slide. So, knowing what you know now about these two stages, is there anything you would do differently at this stage and this one? If so, what? So either you can put that in the chat box or you can just sort of reflect on that for yourself. Um, yeah. Is it that you would give her more space? Is it that you give her information later down the line? Is it whatever comes to you, trust that. Yes, Freddie. So yes, Jill, perfect. Help clients know that there is no need to rush. No, there really isn't. Because here's the thing, like when we have a sort of, they may have a sense of urgency, I need to do something with this, but actually they don't. What's so key at the beginning is to just give them the space to say there is no rush. Come back to this when you feel that you are have the headspace to start, right? Um, I think that's the most loving thing we can do. Because often we might go, no, but let's get the plan going. And it's like, she's just not there yet. Um, Wait more until working on what she wants. Yes, absolutely. Um, I don't know about any of you, but when I first started doing this work on my authentic desires, and because I've done a lot of work on that over the last 3 or 4 years about what I really desire, right? It felt like I wasn't allowed to know because it was selfish, like desire is seen as something really shitty in our it's misunderstood and it's seen as selfish and it's seen as not something that we're supposed to have. But actually, what I've discovered and what I write more about in my book is authentic desire is actually direction. When we know what we want, it's a lot easier. Thank you. Have a really beautiful day, Naomi. And in a sensitive way, try to engage in conversations on the emotional aspects of a certain investment. Tell me more about that, Freddie. I'd love to know what you mean by that. If you want, you can just put it into the chat box. Next slide, please. So, reclamation, this is where she is ready. Um, and I know this very, very well because I now show up very differently um to my so interestingly enough, I decided to engage with a financial advisor again. And this time very differently. So I wasn't looking for one, but I realized I actually really wanted one when I met Anthony, who became my advisor. And he became my advisor a year ago. And the reason why was because I felt really seen, really heard. I felt like he really understood me. And I felt that he gave me the space to listen, like gave me space. And so, um, what I see now is that whereas before I would show up and just go, okay, he told me to do that. I now challenge him and go, why are you thinking that? But that's not because I'm being difficult. It's just because I want to understand and because I want to see whether what he's suggesting resonates for me. Now, obviously, he is in this world a lot more than me. However, there is something to be said for us, for our truth. And actually, usually now I go back to him and I go, I'm thinking about this, but my sense of it is this. What do you think? And he usually just goes, yeah, I think you're right. Or he may go, actually, no. So we're able to have a partnership. There's a respect there. There is an evolution, and there is a sense of like, I go to you because I want to be challenged. I go to you also because I want you to give me a perspective. Maybe this is not what I thought to learn. So, um, it's a very different space, right? It's a very different relationship. And so, you can definitely ask, how do you wish your wealth and me to support you moving forward? She will know. And then one more thing you can ask is talk me through your thinking. Elicit things for her. Instead of just discussing the investment and, for example, the tax benefits of a certain investment versus another, be prepared to ask questions on their emotional attachment. So yeah, Freddie, like, why is it important to her? Why is it important? The why behind why we do anything is going to be important to her and reflect it back into why her life, right? But also bear in mind where she's at. Because when we want to support and help, we need to ensure that she's ready to hear it. Otherwise, you will keep going backwards and forwards, and make no progress whatsoever. Um, so yeah, next slide. So let's just take a minute again and knowing what you know now, is there anything you would actually, what is one thing you'll be taking away with you today? And how will this change the way you work with your clients? So is there anything today that's been like, oh wow, okay, great. I can see where I may have been coming in a bit too early with the information. I'm going to need to give her some time and allow her to take some space, and that's okay. By the way, she'll really thank you for it. Um, and then you can just nurture the relationship. Just check in with her now and again. Um, so yeah, is there anything that you would change in the way that you're doing things? So looking at the process as a full cycle, being early doors with my coaching, I've not seen this process all the way through with anyone yet. So having an idea of how this might go is helpful. Wonderful. Gives you some sort of framework, right, Jill? Um, Wonderful. And hopefully the visual helps that you're able to like see where she's at and create your own way of seeing this. But she is navigating that journey. It's not, inheritance isn't just an event. It is the threshold to something far greater for her. Um, what to expect of their experience along the way while not putting any expectations on her. Absolutely. So, if I had known that if somebody had shown this to me at the beginning of my journey, I would have been like, ah, okay, understood. I'm on a journey. There will be moments where it feels really shitty. There will be moments where it feels really great. There will be moments where I don't understand. There will be moments when, right? Yes. Framing that she's on a journey and a rite of passage is so, so helpful. Because what happens generally as women is that, and I'm not saying every woman, I'm just saying what I've seen in the work that I've been doing with women for years, is this, that when we don't understand what's going on, we blame ourselves. We blame ourselves. It's like, I don't understand, I must be stupid. I don't understand why I feel this way. There's something wrong with me. I don't understand why I don't feel grateful. Um, and I'm still in the shame and the guilt. I don't understand. I don't understand. And so what happens is when we don't understand, we blame ourselves. And that makes it a lot worse, right? So it makes it like full on, can't deal with anything. This is really, really dreadful experience for me, right? So giving them an understanding and a framework and a sense of, hey, this can be very helpful and holding it lightly as well. Next slide. So what is next? Um, so through my own journey, discovery, etc., and as I've said, the stages, I have created a quiz for her. Now, if you're working with women who inherit already, this is something you can action straight away. And you can access this. I know you've been giving the slides, so that's fine. You can send her in that direction. The reason why this inheritance quiz actually really works for her is this. So I, rather than putting it into when I first launched this, I put it into archetypes, the maiden, the queen, and the empress. That's the journey she goes on. And ultimately it allows her to understand where she is at that stage, what to do next, like what to expect on the journey, and it's very specific. Um, and so the wonderful thing about that is she can bring that to your session and you can talk about it. So if you'd like to try it out just to see, that's where you can go to. You can, but as I said, you can have the slides are coming your way, so you know where to access that. The other thing is to book in a conversation with me. Um, and possibly something that we can co-create together. Maybe it's an opportunity for us to um, talk more deeply about a particular client that you can't see clearly. Maybe it's something that you would love some pointers. Um, Obviously, the stronger client retention, um, the more they feel understood, the more they will be with you. Obviously, we all want recurring business. And the more that they feel understood and heard, the longer term clients you'll have and the more consistent revenue you'll have too. Um, then there will also be less back and forth. And um, yeah, it's an opportunity to become their trusted advisor. Obviously, the less emotionally driven decisions, the fewer reactive choices, and more grounded financial outcomes. I mean, it's a cycle, right? So the more she feels understood and heard, and you are landing the information at a point when she can really hear it, the more progress you'll make, the quicker you'll be, and the more success you'll have. Um, So I would say this isn't just a nice to have, this directly impacts how your clients behave and how they decide and whether they stay. So if that sounds like something you'd like to explore more of, um, then yeah, let's book in a call and let's have a conversation. So that is, oh wow, I ended at two. Wow, that's amazing. Um, does anybody have any questions actually before we leave? Okay, so Jill has one. Have you come across a client who hasn't inherited as much as they expected? I'm navigating that at the moment, so there is much work to disconnect her from the expectations of the amount and get her in a new mind frame to work with what she did end up with. Um, well. I don't know her situation, but I can imagine that if she expected to get something more than she got, there might be some. Let me ask you, is there some anger there? Is there some disappointment there? Um, are there other people involved? Did others, right? Did other people get more than she did? Other siblings involved? Um, or is that, yeah. So I'm just curious. So she's navigating both the disappointment. Okay. So a lot of upset about her father's management of the finances. Fine. Once again, I would just, right. So he lived a bigger, did he leave her to pay any debt? Okay, fine. Well, you can start with that. Yeah. It's not as much as you thought, but at least, there isn't this debt that he could have left you with. But ultimately, once again, normalize the situation, really listen to her. But it was sub 1 million when it was expected to be considerably more than one. Okay, fine. Um, Once again, being able to normalize her situation, empathize with her, and say it's completely normal, you'll feel this way. I totally get it. And how would you love to, how would do you need space? Do you need time? What is it that you really need right now to be able to consolidate this? And ultimately, it's a process. It's a process. Um, and I guess that is something to look at. And there's a reframe here, right? You could easily elicit what it means for her that this is what it really means for her, actually. What does it really mean for her that she didn't get what she wanted? Freddie, thank you very much. That was absolutely wonderful. And I feel I have learned lots. Thank you so much, Freddie. I really appreciate it. I think she needs to come to terms with her dad not being who or what she thought he was, but I'm not sure that's my work to do with her. Well, Dill, if you'd like to carry on this conversation, maybe there's something here that I can add value with her. Um, please reach out to me and we can discuss this further. Does that sound like a plan? Fab. Okay, great. Um, so wonderful. What I will do is I will leave my email address here, and send one to me. Let me just quickly send it here and then we'll close and we'll end up. Give me a sec. Can't, you know what? Do you? Okay, we'll call through the link. Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today. It was wonderful to connect with you all, and hopefully you got a lot out of it. And yeah, it'll be wonderful to keep the journey going. So thanks a lot. Bye bye for now.